Good evening and welcome to another episode of Fresh Natural Live. I hope your Monday's gone well and hopefully you had a great weekend. Mine was busy and productive as usual, but I did sneak a little rest in. Of course, I got a new toy. I don't want to call it a toy. It's a new health device. I moved an infrared sauna in my house, and so I've been using the sauna lately. So that's been a joy. I'll tell you about that on another show. I think we've talked about the benefits of infrared sauna therapy, and we'll kind of continue that conversation down the road. Tonight, we have a very, very special guest, a good friend of mine. We're not even going to waste any words with an introduction. When I come back after our show intro, I'm going to give you an introduction that is going to be very appropriate. I'm going to let her introduce herself in a little video clip that we have of her. So I want you to sit tight. We have a great show tonight. We're going to be talking about healthy treats for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I think you need to know all about this because we don't want you having, a heart attack or stroke. This time of the year is the peak time of the year for people getting sick, whether you're getting flu or COVID or heart attack or stroke, or the number one time of the year for getting a heart attack is around Christmas Day. And we're going to talk about why that is the case in a minute. So hang on. We got a great show for you tonight. Yes, hello again. And so, as I was alluding to in my intro, this is the season. It's all about, fun, festivities, and food. Families get together, people, get together. They reminisce about old times. They look forward to new times. They have joyous times. And food is often in the center of it. So as a healthcare practitioner, I'm nervous about this time of the year because many of my patients, they get off their, health regimen and they get on that old traditional, holiday food, the turkey, the giblets, the brisket. A lot of people fry the turkey, they fry everything. And it plays havoc on your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your GI system. And so I thought we'd have a conversation today, and no one better to converse with you about this topic is someone that's near and dear to my heart, who we worked with for a number of years. She's been on the show before, and you know who she is, but I'm going to share this little video clip anyway, and then we're going to bring her on.
Hey everybody, it's Chef Babette. I'm having a blast. You know what I do? I do best, desserts. And I'm inviting you to come over on any day, and I will be very happy to teach you how to make this delectable. And we call this Chef Babette's Blackberry Blueberry Cobbler. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna first saute. I'm using tempeh today.
Okay.
All right, a little bell pepper.
Can we start, Chef?
Yeah.
Green onion, please dig in.
Okay.
And so you have, but you don't eat anything unless you promise you're gonna be like,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
They'll like it. They'll
So,
like
okay,
it.
so what we're gonna do is we're gonna dump our tempeh in here.
Okay. Just
And
a little bit of oil.
And I'm not using oil actually.
Okay.
And because if we get it hot enough, we can just take the
Delicious.
isn't it? See, say it louder, louder, louder. They're saying it's delicious.
Yeah.
Whoa,
So
whoa,
anyway,
whoa. This is incredible.
Isn't it?
It's like cheesy.
All right, so
Wow.
then we're gonna. Oh, this is Bragg's liquid amino, so I'm using
liquid
this
amino.
instead of salt.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can we just mention something? Now I hope you're okay with this.
I'm okay with it.
How young are you?
I'm 66.
No way.
Please step back. Everybody.
No way.
Look at that. What? What? Oh, yeah. That's vegan
You know what?
steak.
If now she's watching, that is.
How about all of you come along with me and hang out with Chef B today? We're going to do a real great workout in the park.
Working out is about breathing, it's about pushing, it's about taking yourself to your max. Life is not complete unless you move.
Most days, however, I am at Stuff I Eat, banging it away at least until opening. And then the rest of the day is mine. I'm gonna go to my favorite health food store and we're gonna pick up some items because I've got a group of friends that are gonna come around today and we're gonna sit back, chat, enjoy ourselves, and eat some of my delectable delights.
I gotta get this spiralizer. Bought one last night, left it. And I need one. And I'm trying to be a little frugal, but at the same time, I want to make sure that this ain't gonna jack me out of my money. So you know what I think I'm gonna do? I think I'm gonna just go with the $20 spiralizer. I know this one will work. $19.99. This is what I'm getting today for our raw spaghetti.
I got my team here, all my ladies, and we're getting ready to prepare spaghetti sauce for y'all. So what we're gonna do is we're actually making one sauce, but it's so darn versatile. You can actually eat it raw or live, or we can heat it as we have some heating over there. And so you can either have pasta, you can have spiralized zucchini. It's just a super versatile sauce. Right now, we're gonna get ready to dive in and make all of you viewing this very, very jealous. Let's eat, y'all. And the beauty to all of this is that at my age, at 66 years old, outside of the restaurant, I can still have such a fantastic time and I have the energy to enjoy myself. So today it's Saturday, I gathered with friends and it was absolutely wonderful. Have a great day. Bye.
Why you laughing at me?
Okay, I love that video. I love that video. So, of course, you know, we have Chef Babette as our special guest today, and we're going to be talking about holiday meals. Part one, we're going to talk about the traditional food and, you know, what's in it. And you know, I used to eat this stuff. We all used to eat this stuff. And we're going to talk about, you know, what's wrong with it. I mean, people say, well, what's wrong with a little bit of, you know, chicken or turkey or whatever the case is. And we're going to give you insight to that. But we're not just going to state the problem. We're going to give you a solution. So part two, we're going to give you a solution. And Chef Babette is going to help us with some great ideas in terms of alternative food that we could have that's not only as delicious, but more delicious and better for you. So stay tuned. Before I bring Chef Babette on, I want to bring my friend and colleague, Dr. Celeste Palmer. Dr. Palmer, how are you doing today?
I'm well.
She was busy saving lives in the clinic and made it here in time to visit with us. But without further ado, Chef Babette, how are you doing today? Welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness, I am great. Celeste. Hi,
Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful. It's so good to see you. And always good to see you, Doc.
Yep, the pleasure is always mine. It's all mine. So,
I
you know,
we showed the end of that video with that little tired dance I did.
That's okay. They got the right perspective. That's all right. And it's all you. No, you know, I'm going to jump right into this because, you know, this is the time of year where we celebrate. And, you know, celebration and family and fun, it's what it's all about. And oftentimes, you know, I have to tell patients, well, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, etc. And it's a big problem for them because there's a psychological component to it. What I want us to do, and I want you to help us do, is kind of break this down in the sense that, you know, you can go back to the days before you were Chef Babette and eating the way you're eating. When you ate the traditional Thanksgiving food, I can look back when I ate the traditional Thanksgiving food, same with Dr. Palmer. help us go back to those days in your personal experience, what you did, how you experienced that, and help share with the audience, the problems with that tradition, even though we hold it near and dear to our hearts. What's your take on this?
Well, I was born to a Southern mother who loved to cook. She was a cook. She loved to share her dishes. And for the type of food that she was cooking, she was considered a very good cook. However, I was I didn't do very well with the standard American diet. I was a child that had eczema. I suffered with asthma. Um, Food digestion was always a challenge for me, even when I was a very young child. I always had gas, always had gas. There were certain foods that I just could not tolerate because they always made me sick. I can remember when I decided I wasn't going to eat chitterlings anymore. I said, I'm not going to eat them anymore because I think I'm allergic to them. Because every time I ate chitterlings, I was so sick afterwards. But I didn't just eat the intestines of a pig. I also ate greens. I also ate yams filled with sugar. All the stuff that went along with that. So Thanksgiving was always a day when I suffered at the end of the day. My daughter was born on November 27th, which the year she was born in 1971, I think that was the day after Thanksgiving. I went into labor that night, but I had so much indigestion. I was miserable that night. So basically, it taught me that there was just something about this food that did not agree with me, and I could not seem to break it down. Plus the fact that I combined everything together. I ate all of it in one sitting. There was, you know what I mean? Food combining, I didn't even know what that was. So you can just imagine on a day like Thanksgiving, and I was traditional. I tried to put everything on my plate. My mother used to make sweet potato pies. I thought she made some of the best sweet potato pies on the planet. But I can remember my mama using a dozen eggs in her sweet potato pies. And my mother used so much refined sugar in Kool-Aid and it poured out like syrup. My mother's spaghetti sauce was so sweet with sugar, you could drink milk with it. It was almost like a dessert. So on top of all of that, the grease, the fat, all of that, I was addicted to sugar. So can you imagine? I've got the sugary, my mother would make me a whole sweet potato pie just for myself. And I would sit there and I would eat that whole sweet potato pie. I love sweet potato pie. Baby, I was one sick sister during the holidays. I was always sick afterwards. When I met my husband, Ronald Davis, in 1990, that is when my world changed. He gave me 2 books to read, Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond, The Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret. I read those books, started practicing what they suggested in those books, and my world began to change. And that's kind of how it was for me back then.
I'm muted. So the interesting thing that you point out is that on the one hand, you enjoyed the food, but then when it got into your system, you didn't like it. Hey, it's interesting. I was in our Sunday school class this weekend. We were studying Revelation. Then there's a verse in Revelation. I think it's actually chapter 8 or maybe 5, or even earlier than that, where the angel tells John to take the book. And there's actually chapter 8, and it takes a book and to eat the book. He says the book is going to be sweet to your tongue, but bitter to your stomach. And so it sounds like that's what you're describing. The food was sweet to your tongue, but bitter to your stomach. And a lot of people have that experience with food. It's sweet to the tongue, but bitter to the stomach, bitter to the heart, bitter to the liver, bitter to the brain, bitter to the muscles, bitter to the joint. And you have that dichotomy that it's hard to break. And you love it, but then there's a love-hate relationship. You love the food, it hates you. And we see a lot of that during this time of the year.
Right. And also I find that what we do is we're miserable afterwards, but we make excuses like what we've done is just normal. I mean, it's just normal. It's just the way you're going to feel after you eat all this stuff. Well, that does not make real good, rational sense. What you think, Celeste?
Well, I'm thinking about my experience, and my body I didn't get those signals that something was wrong. So I think that's where a lot of people get confused, because they don't get the signals that this is a problem. You have Thanksgiving dinner, the next day you have leftovers, the next day you have more leftovers, you have pies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's that feel good moment. And so I'm just reflecting on my experience. I had to make a conscious decision to make a change, because those things, I didn't get a direct signal. Now, certain things like milk has never really agreed with me. So I know, ice cream is not one of my things. But the other things, I'm like, well, what's wrong with my macaroni and cheese? What's wrong with my, we do like a crab casserole. What's wrong with my crab casserole? So, it had to be a conscious decision up here for me to kind of make the change that I made. And I think some people, you have to say, I had to do the research. Like you said, you read those books, the research to figure out what our body is supposed to receive, and then make the changes from there. Because I think when you pour in so many things at the same time over years, like we've all done, the body doesn't know what to signal. Now, if I go back and I try to do any of that now, I'll get a signal. Yeah.
Right. You're absolutely right. I guess I was just so miserable afterwards, because when I was a young child, I suffered with earache. So in other words, my little body was just always filled with a lot of inflammation. Wouldn't you say, Doc? With the eczema, the asthma, all that is just a lot of mucus, just a buildup of mucus. And I believe that because I was just very, very sensitive all my life. So of course, Thanksgiving would be a harsh day for me. You know what I mean? No, I couldn't do dairy at all, but I tried, obviously. Doctors told me I was allergic to nuts. Oh, wow. And so, it was kind of hard with everybody else, because my mother felt like if you weren't eating the way that she prepared food, you're going to be too skinny, you're going to be sickly. And I'm like, no, sickly is after I eat all that stuff. That's when I'm getting sick. And I loved my mom, and that was her thing, sharing food, but she just had it all wrong. When my mother made her transition, I found something in my mother's drawer. It was a bag of this glistening, you know what it was, Doc? It was MSG. Go to the Asian markets, and she would buy that MSG in a bag. And my mother had me so addicted to MSG that I would go. There's a place in LA I can right now, Harold and Bales. They sold good seafood, I believe, whatever. I can remember taking my MSG in a little plastic bag because Harold and Bales did not use Accent or MSG in their food. And
my
I knew
goodness.
they didn't because I could taste it.
Shame
And
on
so
that.
when they put my food, I would sprinkle MSG on my food.
Oh, wow.
That is from whence I came.
Wow.
That is where I came from.
Wow.
You know, so of course I had to make changes. I had to figure out another way to nourish myself. When I read Fit for Life, they taught me, Fit for Life did not say you need to be a vegan. Fit for Life said you need to learn how to eat. You need to understand that there are 3 different categories to fruit. You got your sweet, you got your acid, you have subacid. You'll have your melons. Melons should be eaten alone. Your sweet and your subacid are compatible, but your acid and your sweet are not compatible. I didn't know all that stuff. But knowledge is power. Knowledge will bring us to a point where we can now begin to heal. I didn't believe that traditional food was all that, because it just made me feel ugly all the time. Now, Celeste, you were lucky. You got a chance to enjoy it, and you didn't feel the way that I felt. I felt miserable every single time. So, yeah, go ahead, Doc.
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So if you get sick immediately after eating it, you're probably one of the more fortunate people because you have that constant reminder. And at some point, you just tired of getting sick, and so you found an alternative.
Doc, I would get constipated and have to dig the poop out of me.
Oh my goodness.
No, Doc, I just kept eating it because I didn't know any better.
Well, you're right. You're right.
I felt like crap.
You're right. But see, here's the thing, though. You had that constant reminder. So once you learned differently, you had 2 things working for you: the newfound knowledge and the sickness. And once you got relief, it's like, okay, it's hard to go back there. The people that we have perhaps the hardest time with is that, they're sort of sick, but not super sick. And then they get better. They may have high blood pressure, the cholesterol's up, but they can still eat the food and not, feel horrible. Right. And those are people will have trouble with, because you can have a heart attack and you have a stroke and all of that, but you don't feel bad right after eating the food. And so that's a proximate cause. Lawyers talk about proximate cause. So there's no associated proximate cause of eating the food and causing the illness. You eat the food today and you had a stroke last week, you have a stroke in 2 months from now, but you don't associate that with eating the bad food. You had the blessing of having immediate association with eating the bad food. So once you learned different, then you had a constant reminder and encouragement to stay on the right path. I remember eating Thanksgiving meals, and I was a big eater. I mean, oh my goodness, I was a big eater. And so I enjoyed the food. When Christmas, we didn't have presents someday. We could have, that didn't bother me. We had food all the time. Presents, what's presents? I want to eat. So the thing is, I would always eat, and I remember on Thanksgiving, we'd eat a big meal, and of course, you enjoyed the meal, but then I always enjoyed eating the meal after. I mean, you kind of have 2 meals or 3 meals that day. And then you'd be watching a football game, falling asleep in front of the TV. And, there's a sedative effect of all the processed carbohydrates and whatnot. And Dr. Palmer, I want you to share with us what your experience was in your training in pediatrics in terms of how to use sugar with. I mean, we've been wanting to mention this, but the power of sugar. I mean, you've shared this with me before.
Yeah, I was going to say too, the issue in pediatrics is that they don't, because they're so young and the body is so forgiving, they don't get signals. And so when we talk about changing what we're putting in our body, the kids are kind of like, why? That makes no sense to them. But sugar is becoming, I try now to talk to parents when we're starting off with feeding these babies, feeding them vegetables first. And holding off on even natural sweets, because once you get the tongue kind of used to the sugar, then it becomes hard to break that. And then, as we know, sugar allows the gut to grow more yeast, and then you become sugar addicted. And so I think that's what's happening with a lot of these children. And then just from reading about sugar and the dangers of sugar, is actually toxic to the body. It creates, it dehydrates the body. It also creates memory loss in the children. I mean, they kind of, you might tell them to do 3 things and they might remember 2 and then they move on. And, people kind of see that as, oh, he's just a kid, but children are supposed to remember things. They're supposed to have the best memory. But the children are truly sugar addicted now. And, we joke and say hot Takis and things like this, but these things are very damaging to the children's system. And there's actually a movie that I watched years ago on Netflix or something like that. It was called The Truth About Sugar. It was something about sugar, it being a conspiracy, it being something that is known to be a toxin to the body. But it is a major industry because it makes a lot of money because you can cover things up with sugar, things that don't taste good. If you put sugar on it, it's going to taste good and people will eat it. And so sugar has been used to get people to eat more and also to eat things that otherwise they may not naturally like the taste of. So, I mean, it's being used against us. Now, in its natural form, in the sugar cane, in the plant, it's fine.
Yeah.
But once you pull it out of that plant and concentrate it, now it's a drug to the body, and that's how it acts.
But then you have high fructose corn syrup. You have all of those things that are just completely and totally unhealthy for us. And then they put sugar in so many of the products that we purchase. I can remember going to Savon's looking for a jar of organic peanut butter, and every jar had sugar in it. And so my only reason for them doing that is it's so highly addictive.
Yes.
That you're going to have people coming back for it. And Doc, there's another thing that I find to be real nuts right now. We as a species, the human as a species, having to medicate oneself after they eat is nuts. And I don't care whether you feel the effects of the food you're eating, but if you got to go buy you some Tums, or if your doctor's got to put you on some type of a medication to help you digest your food after you eat, there is a problem. Because this God did not make a mistake. This is so highly intelligent. If you give it what it is supposed to have, it handles itself. I should have had no reason to be digging poop out of myself. I couldn't get it out because of the way I was eating. And I'm being perfectly honest and candid with you. I was constipated miserably.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I like the comment you make about the need to take medications after you eat. And I would add to that, maybe you have to take medication before and after. And listening to you talk reminds me of that it's a little jingle. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I mean, you got 2 poisons
So true.
that you're giving the kids, a spoonful of sugar and medicine. And so, I mean, it's just outrageous, but you're right. And our perspective on life is so distorted. And I think it reaches a peak level of distortion at this time of our lives, the holiday season. Now, frequently the excuses I get, people say, well, it's the holidays. I want to enjoy my life, want to enjoy my family, want to enjoy this, that, and the other. I have patients in the hospital right now who have heart disease and all, and they're not enjoying their families. A heart. And I was sharing this with a patient. It was interesting. It was a patient who had just had a heart attack. And his story was he had a heart attack. It was he and the wife were getting ready to go to a dinner, and he had a heart attack. And so, he had recovered, and we were in the office. We would talk about detox, and he would say, well, we have to go on a vacation or some trip, and we can't start the detox now. Maybe start when we get back.
Started afterwards.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, and I had forgotten about his particular story. And I said, well, look, heart attack, I say stroke won't wait. A heart attack won't wait. Heart failure won't wait. I've never seen anybody cancel a heart attack to go to an event. I've always seen them cancel an event for the heart attack. And I didn't remember that was exactly his story. And he looked at his wife and he nodded and said, yep, we were getting ready to go to an event. That night had a tuxedo and everything. And they had to cancel because he had chest pain and went in with a heart attack. So what I try to convey to people is that, yes, this is a special time. And yes, this is a time that you need to enjoy the company of your loved ones. But you really need to do it responsibly. They say drink responsibly. Well, here you need to eat responsibly. And eating responsibly is healthy, natural food that's ideal for your body. And you may have to go through trouble figuring out alternative meals for these special holiday treats. But that's in part why we're here today, to help give you some solutions, some ideas, because hopefully this message will reach a number of people, and maybe we'll prevent one heart attack or one stroke, one COVID attack or one flu attack. Because yes, what you put in your body predisposed to infection. If you eat trash one day and you sniff a little flu, you get fulminant flu and end up with pneumonia. If you eat trash one day and sniff a little COVID, you may get severe COVID infection. So these bad foods has an adverse effect on your health, and they will put you in a hospital. And then one bite, one drop, one crumb can make all the difference in the world. And so as we go to break, I want to, Dr. Palmer, any comments?
Can I add something? I think what we a lot of people will say, well, my grandmother ate like this, or, when I grew up, I ate like this. And what we have to recognize is there's been a whole lot of changes in the food, for one.
Thank you.
The high fructose corn syrup wasn't a thing when we were growing up. Yes. GMO wasn't as big of a thing either when we were growing up. The factory farming at the level that it is now wasn't as bad as it is. So things have progressed exponentially over the last few years. And also our human understanding of what food is and what food does has changed. So I think a lot of people see food wasn't essential. Eating wasn't essential as it is now. Now everything, when we come together, any kind of function, birthday parties, weddings, meetings, food has to be at these functions in order for it to be considered a good function. And everything wasn't food centered before. And so now, when back in the day, we had Thanksgiving at Thanksgiving and Christmas at Christmas and Easter dinner at Easter, but now we have these meals every day. We have these, we have Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, New Year's every day. Because we're eating this volume every day. And I remember reading a book years ago, it's about 15 years ago now, that said that they are teaching humans to eat more volume. And that was with the supersizing and things like this. It's not that we needed that volume, but it was a selling point. So they're teaching humans to eat more volume as a selling point. And at the time I was thinking, oh, that's not going to work because your stomach can only take but so much. Oh. But little did I know, the stomach, will accommodate, and our body will accommodate whatever we continue to give it. And so there are many changes that have happened over the years. So we can't compare even 10 years ago to today because it's a totally different world.
I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up. My mother used to say when she was young, when they raised chickens, they raised their chickens to maturity. They didn't give them growth hormones. They didn't do all that kind of stuff. And my mother said prior to cooking a chicken, they would actually feed this chicken. There was something, cod liver oil. I think they fed this chicken. They fed this chicken something prior to try to clean it out, prior to slaughtering that chicken and serving it to the family. And they didn't have chicken every day, and they didn't have pigs every day, and they just didn't eat like that every day. But you're spot on, Doc, when it comes to the way that we're handling our food nowadays. You're right. All those things were not available to us back then. And so food was a lot cleaner, if you will, than it is now. It's so riddled and laced with chemicals and all this kind of stuff. We give our babies dyes in the morning, refined sugar in cereal. That cereal is candy, and it's poison. So you send them off to school after eating a bowl of poison, and you expect them to get there and be okay. So yeah, Doc. So
it's crazy. There's a comment I'd like to comment on in a minute, Dr. Palmer, but you're right. And the whole issue with the food being toxic, there's some researchers, and I think it's Dr. Pai, actually, his group looked at the so-called meat in I think maybe 15 different fast food chains. And, you got burgers and whatever, but they found that only in those fast food burgers, and I think there was some other fast food they looked at, only about 3 to 15% of that food was actual animal protein. There were a lot of chemicals and things and other fillers and corn and what have you that made it up. So to your point, the food is much more toxic. Not that the animal protein is healthy, but it's much more toxic now in terms of how the animals are treated, in terms of how the food is processed. Nicole had this comment, Dr. Palmer. I think you may have seen it.
Yeah.
So what is your comments on once your Halloween candy? I think the Halloween candy kind of warms up the rest of the season.
Well, it does. I mean, what I see at work is like once Halloween comes, the clinics are busy because the kids start, every parents have this idea that Halloween is okay for children to, again, eat candy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm saying that, but I've had parents tell me that their child had candy for breakfast. And they'll come in vomiting, nausea, and these things. So you can't do this. Just like you said, the heart attack doesn't wait for the holiday to pass or the vacation to pass. Sickness is not going to wait for this to pass. Another thing, as the food has changed, also these candies that they're feeding the children and everybody else has changed. They have more fillers. They have more chemicals. I don't know if do they even claim that candy is clean or organic? I don't know, because I don't even look at that anymore.
I may have seen some labels with organic candy, but it's crazy. But Doctor, I'm always amazed when you share the story about when you were doing your OB rotation, your training, and they do the circumcision. I mean, what did they used to use to anesthetize a baby's circumcision?
We use sugar. But basically, this is what they don't do this anymore because now they actually have to do a block. But we used to use put a pacifier in a little cup of sugar, and you give that to the baby to kind of calm them while they do the circumcision to the little boys. It will last for maybe about a minute or so, and so then you redip the pacifier and give it back to them, and it actually does calm them significantly when you use it. So that shows you the power of sugar also in being used as to sedate the baby somewhat.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's so a very powerful thing. So, I think we've done a good job of laying out the facts, and I don't know if we spoiled your Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner or not, but what I want to do is at the other side of the break, I want to come back and we want to give you some solutions. So what can you do instead? So, and it's my argument is that, you can actually have food that's better. And there are lots of food that are comfort foods that won't harm you. They're plant-based comfort foods, and Chef Babette's going to help us with that. So hang tight. We'll be back after this break.